Hello everybody, welcome to the Canadian Shield. My name is Sterling. I'm your host. In this episode we're going to be covering Liberal desperation. It's evident in the way that they're making promises they cannot keep and setting goals that they could never hope to achieve. They don't seem to be worried too much about making these promises, so long as you, the voter, or you, the 99%, don't look too closely at the plan, so don't listen too long to what they're saying and are just put dollar signs in your eyes, and somehow they want to make you think that not only are they doing you a favor, but they're going to, of course, like always, make you wealthy and rich, and all this money is going to come directly into your pocket. The problem with the plan, of course, is that it's very specific. It's very myopic. There's no way that even if the plan was viable, it could never assist every city in Canada. It could never assist every municipality in Canada because of the strings that come along with it. Which means, of course, that it's only going to be helping the high density, high urban areas, and anyone else who's already given that tax dollar, who's on the hook to pay this bill that the federal Liberals are spending again, would never ever hope to benefit from it. And that's not really fair, and that's not really problem solving, and that's not really going to bring a solution to the problems of Canada. However, before we get into it, I would encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share this channel with all of your socials. I have an open GoFundMe for equipment, and I have memberships. Any assistance that you're willing to give me, I appreciate. The federal Liberals got together in the Toronto Transit Commission yard, the TTC as it's known, in their rail yard. And though they look like trains, most people will consider them to be subways. There's very little above ground transportation on the TTC in the city of Toronto, the bulk of it. And by the bulk, I mean like 95% of it goes underground. And if it is above ground, it's only for short spans. They went into this region and they promised that they would make an ironclad guarantee that they will give you $30 billion over the next 10 years, no matter what, no matter what. This is because the Liberals have like 20 seats in Toronto, and they know that they're losing on every single solitary one of them. All right, so I'm going to let Freeland talk, and I'll break it up along the way. So A, you can have a break from hearing her, and B, I can show you the inconsistency in what she's saying.
Today's funding is historic. This is $30 billion over 10 years, and it's money that cities and transit systems can apply for starting right now to build and support fantastic systems like the TTC. A central element is about making sure that we as a country do a better job at planning our transit systems, having regional integration, and crucially, being sure that our transit systems and our housing plans work together. So to get the money, you need to be doing things that Toronto is already doing. Abolish parking minimums. Have high density near transit hubs.
So right out of the gate, you hear that there's no way in the world that a small town up north is going to have any access to this money, because they want you to be putting it near high-density buildings that they have approved of, right? That Sean Fraser is demanding that you put in, that the certain people that are not Canadian politicians are demanding that every city turn Canada into like Mumbai, or suppose, or the high density of some of these other countries. You can't have parking minimums. Now, for those of you that might not understand what that means, when you build an apartment or a building in cities in Canada, you have to make sure that you have the allotment for at least one car per person, one parking spot per unit. So if it's a house, you got to have a driveway. If it's an apartment, you got to have parking underground, or you got to have parking you have to have room for parking. Now, when you look at cities that don't have room for parking, we can think of one off the top of my head would be New York. How, they got to have the whole jokes that people make about trying to find parking in New York, and how there's a guy that does a job who moves the cars on the block so that everybody doesn't get a ticket, things of that nature. And why would we target this as a goal? Why would we say to ourselves that this is what we want to achieve? We want to achieve a place where people will generationally not be permitted to own a car. Why would we want this as a goal? Why would we want to have a city where we know the problems that exist from other regions in the world? that all of a sudden have cars and they have no place to park. Why would we say to ourselves, no, this is a goal we should achieve. We should go backwards. We shouldn't worry about making places that have parking for people. We shouldn't worry about them having scooters. We shouldn't worry about them. I mean, let's forget, this is also electric cars. It's not just about carbon. It's about you never, ever, 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 ever having the ability to own a car. You're talking about some high density areas that you can point to in countries where people are going to great lengths to get out of those countries and come to this country. Why would the federal government tell you that this is what they want to emulate? Why would they tell you that? That makes very little sense to me. But to say that you're only getting the money if you agree with our housing plan, to say that you're only getting the money if you agree to make high density, well, how does that help small cities? How does that help small regions? How does that help people that only have one vehicle? This takes us backwards 100 years. And the federal Liberals don't care because they have like 25 seats in Toronto that they're desperate, and they're hoping that you won't see this fact that I just told you, that you'll only say to yourself, oh yeah, let me have a 1,300 square foot apartment that's got 2 bedrooms in it that I paid nearly $2 million for, and I can't even drive a car. I can't park my car anyway, whether it be electric or otherwise. Does that sound like something that you want to have in your life? Now I'll leave a link to the entire press release. Trudeau was there and 4 or 5 MPs, but then afterwards Freeland was out on the tracks talking about this money, and she had a couple of the MPs with her, local people. One of the justice minister was behind her. And I thought, well, this must be the scrum that they have going on. Afterwards, Trudeau is out of the picture now. He doesn't have to think. He doesn't have to say anything. He simply can go away. But it turns out that it's just the Liberals and one cameraman. And he's really funny. He's kind of funny. So just watch this little snippet here. You'll get a kick out of it. And you'll get an idea of how far down announcements from the Liberal Party have fallen in the eyes of even the corporate media, and how little people are paying attention to them.
Right, Arif?
Yes, absolutely.
Hold on that. Let me just reframe then. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Hold on just a second. At the same time. Is this capital or is this operating?
This is capital.
So what you saw there was she tried to pass the ball off to the justice minister, and the guy said, wait, he knew that she wasn't in the frame, but because he's the camera and the sound and the lighting and everybody, because he's one guy with a camera, he said, hold on, let me frame it differently so that I can get him into the shot. Then he got feedback on his microphone because, you know, he probably took the microphone that he has and put it too close to the receiver. And then the sun came out and he had to redo the shot to change the lighting because it was too much glare on. Everybody was coming in. You saw it, how much brighter it got from one second to the next. Unbelievable. This is the federal Liberal government, right? Trying very desperately to make you think that everything is a gigantic cog in the machine, but the reality, of course, is much different. That they are, well, they're a fiasco, and this $30 billion that they're promising comes with too many hooks. It doesn't help the entire country, which bothers me a lot. Like, I could get it if it was a provincial announcement, but I won't get it if it's a federal announcement. Federal government has to do federal things. It has to be equal for everybody. That's just my opinion on that. You can leave your opinion down in the comments. Okay, so I told you from the beginning that this seems like a desperate attempt by the Liberal Party to convince you to vote for them, to sort of quote unquote buy your vote. They're making promises they can't keep. They say that it's ironclad and guaranteed, but it's never going to be guaranteed, because the second that somebody else gets elected into office, they can overturn any legislation that was written by somebody before them. Everybody knows that. And only someone who doesn't understand government doesn't understand that. But by saying it's guaranteed, what they want, what they're hoping to say is, well, if you don't vote for us, it's not going to be a guarantee. However, this system, that they're promising, is not going to be good enough for all of Canadians. It's only going to be good enough for very specific cities. That's why they announced it in Toronto, on top of the billions that they've already given Toronto. because Toronto has 20 some Liberal seats in it, and they know that they're in jeopardy of losing every single solitary one of them. So they want to make you think that if you don't keep the Liberals in power, all of a sudden your city is going to be. But they are offering you this money only on the sense that you might move into a new place and not be allowed to park a car, which then only opens up expenses on parking lots and other issues that we can see in other large cities. The reporter, however, he seems to be aware of this glaring inconsistency. And so he asked two questions, but you can't really hear them. I went through and I listened to them over and over, and I typed them out on the screen. That's why they show up. What is important is the way the Liberals and Chrystia Freeland respond. My goodness, do they become very defensive.
It's about being sure that as we build our transit systems, we're building housing as well.
Is it going to be based on a push ridership or population or a need?
We heard from the mayor that she is going to be putting in an application today for the money. I'm actually having supper with her tonight, and I look forward. I suspect this is going to be on the menu, and I look forward to discussing it with her.
So it's not going to be.
That's all the time we have. It's all the time we have, James.
Operation expenses are also have to be evened out towards Canada. If you look at the operation per ridership supplement from the feds, it's heavily
as the Prime Minister said today. This money is about capital investments, $30 billion. That's as much as we're spending on $30 billion over 10 years. Huge, unprecedented, historic investment. We are proud to be making it. It is permanent. It is predictable. It is exactly what we have been hearing from cities, from transit systems that they need, and we're here to provide that. Thank you very much.
So we say two things there. First of all, it can never be permanent, and it can never be. But they know that. They know that based on the fact that when he talked about it being equal for every city in the country, they lost their mind. When he talked about how are they going to dole it out? Is it based on population density? Is it based on how many people actually in that region take the bus? What is it based on? She lost her mind and then attempted to shut the conference down. But it's only one guy with a camera. And he wanted his follow-up question, right? Because you get two questions that everybody, that's the standard, right? But she just talked about how she spends $30 billion on, and then she didn't have anything to say, and so she switched the subject. But we spend more on interest on our loans that you're borrowing to get this $30 billion off people who don't really care about the outcome of the country. They just want to make sure that they make their money. Based on her reactions is where I think that she's just trying to buy your vote, right? To say that it's guaranteed. Well, how are you going to guarantee it unless you vote for me, right? Then it's guaranteed. But it will be amazing to see how many seats the Liberals can lose in the city of Toronto if they ever get the courage to call an election, which their numbers are plummeting as we speak. I have seen polls where the Conservatives have breached 45% of the popular vote, 45%. Even when you allow for margins of error, that still puts them at an enormous amount of representation in the House of Commons. And that's not because people in Canada care so much about Conservatives. It's just they do not like the Liberal NDP policies. One of the things that the reporter's question does bring to light is how this program could never work equally across the country. There are not very many high-density regions outside of southern Canada. Do you believe that they're going to give this money to Edmonton? Edmonton has already said that they're not going to participate in the high-density buildings. Well, if you're not going to participate in the high-density, then you're not getting any of this money. Does that sound like inclusion and equality to you, or does that sound like extortion? Because to me, that sounds like do it or else. And if you're in a small city, like a 50,000 population city, where are you going to? Where's the need for a transportation hub in a region like that? Where's the need for it to say, well, everybody has to live around this one central bus stop that all four buses in our entire route system come into, and they meet and everybody talks, and then they get back on the bus and they drop off the people at their house or at the mall or at their school. So they're not going to be really looking forward to getting any money either. But 20 seats They are desperate. They know they're losing in Quebec. So all they have is Ontario left. Ontario, and they got a few seats in Nova Scotia. I haven't looked at the numbers there. All right, I'm going to wrap here. I want to thank you all for listening. I will talk to you next time.